Hello, cosmonauts. Today we are going to be exploring what Reddit asked people who quit their jobs on the first day. What made you say, I'm done with this? Answer 1. Tried working at Taco Bell once. I knew it would be chaos, but I wasn't prepared. The manager was friendly at first, but they wanted me to go right into the line for assembling food. The screens and program they use look like they're about 30 years old, so it's really complicated figuring out the orders. Everything is abbreviated so they can fit a ton of orders on the screen, and I didn't know what the abbreviations meant. The manager watched me for a second and told me what was on the first few orders, then he just left me there. I had no idea what to make. Desperately, I just started making soft tacos for every order, which was not correct. Then I find out he's in the back smoking weed with the dishwasher. As I was tracking him down, the other guy in the assembly part was yelling that he was left there alone. Newsflash, I was useless. He was alone the whole time. I ended up leaving 30 minutes after I started. Fucking shit show. Answer 2. Filter Queen vacuum cleaners. They said that I would be doing demonstrations of the vacuum cleaner and that they were hiring other people to make the appointments. I showed up and they handed me a phone book so I could start cold calling my own appointments. I handed it back and left. Answer 3. Tim Hortons. 25 years ago. First hour into my first shift. Charged me for a company outfit that had the pockets sewn shut. Apparently so staff wouldn't steal cash. Then they brought the old donuts into a back room to be thrown in the trash, and I ate one before they went into the trash. The manager snapped at me and said, if they are good enough to eat, they are good enough to pay for. And she seriously wanted me to pay for it. I explained to her that they are about to go in the trash, and she told me it didn't matter. I quit on the spot and told her that I couldn't work for a company that would rather throw good food in the trash than feed their staff. Answer 4. I had a boss like this once. I was getting ready to throw out some old chicken wings that had been sitting in a warmer for hours and asked the closing employees if anyone wanted any. Dude lost his shit, like he usually did over small things. Basically got in my face over it. Into the trash they went. Horrible. Answer 5. Worked at a distribution warehouse. I had to scan the boxes on the conveyor belt and put them in the appropriate bin to go out for delivery. 1 hour in, my scanner stopped working and they had no extras. I asked my supervisor what I could do in the meantime, but they told me to sit tight while it was fixed. 4 hours and a lunch break later, I finally got back to work. Not 10 minutes go by, and the same supervisor pulls me aside to let me know my productivity was lower than the expectation, and if it continued, I'd be fired. I reminded them my scanner had been broken most of the shift, but they literally waved their hand in a dismissing motion and reiterated what the expectations were. I went back to scanning, did maybe 2 boxes, said fuck this, and left my badge on the supervisor's desk on my way out. Answer 6. In the 90s, got a job at a local tech repair place, mostly catering to the Commodore 64 and Amiga crowds. The owner barely showed up and pointed me at a long shelf full of broken joysticks that needed new switches, then left. Promised to bring the contract by the end of the day. An hour or so afterwards, the previous tech appeared to collect his property, including the soldering station. I left with him. Answer 7. Had a 4-hour working interview at a doggy daycare. All indoors, no outdoors. 30 dogs for me and 1 other person. No windows, concrete floor, sparse toys and play gyms. It was awful. The smell was awful. The echoing barking of bored dogs was awful. I don't think I made it through the full 4 hours. Got hired at another daycare the next week, which had a massive outside area with multiple yards and 2 indoor areas for cold days, fun agility equipment and toys, a fully filtered pool for summer, seats for me to sit in if my feet were hurting, I have fibromyalgia, etc. Loved that place. Was there until I decided to move to Australia, LOL. Answer 8. I worked at Forever 21 for a grand total of 16 hours. The first 8 was paperwork and training. The second 8 was an overnight shift where they were resetting the store. The staff was getting pissy with me because I, being a new employee, did not know where anything was meant to go. Each part of the store was a type of girl, described as goth, boho, etc. There were many, I didn't know them. It wasn't included in the training. It was a literal shop based on vibes. Time came for the end of my shift and my dad was there to pick me up. It was like 4 a.m. The manager wouldn't unlock the door to let me out because they were not done yet. But my dad was literally outside and we lived 30 minutes away. I did not have my own car just yet. She refused to unlock the door and told me to get back to it, and that my dad would have to wait, which, no, it isn't what I was scheduled for or what I agreed to, so I quit. Now I'm glad the company is literally falling apart. Answer 9. I asked where the restroom was, and when shown to me, the women's restroom was being used as a filling cabinet and men were walking in there trying to get into the one stall in the bathroom to get to the filling cabinet. I was also told that I needed to be a good girl, so the customers would buy things from me. I left. This was a small business retail store, by the way. Answer 10. Started at some type of weird call center as a summer job in college, and to this day I haven't a clue what they were doing every day because I left at lunch after my boss, 30 years my senior then, told me he listened to my calls and if this job didn't work out I could always be a phone sex operator. I was 18. I left and never went back. Hey you, if you enjoying the video, subscribe for more histories. Answer 11. Cleaning job on a college campus at night. Was hired and given a building to clean. Was given a universal key to every door in the building except one. Was told to radio the manager when I was done with everything else. Got to that point, and the manager came and said, "Wait outside the door." And she went in and turned off an alarm system. She turned on lights, and we were in a cold lobby area. Said in the next room to wipe down the sinks, sweep the floor, and only empty the trash cans with clear bags in them. It was a cadaver room for their physical therapy department. There were 8 dead bodies in there covered in white clothes. I got in, I did the work, and said never again. Answer 12. When I was a teenager, we moved to new house, and my parents wanted me to get a new job closer to the new house, so I could bring my younger siblings home after school. I got a job with a significant pay cut at McDonald's. It lasted 3 hours and I walked out and called the hospital and they gave me my job back. Mom was a well-respected doctor at the hospital, so me getting hired was easy. The way people treat service workers so terribly is completely unacceptable and the work they want done at minimum wage is insane. Answer 13. As a very young man, I accepted a job at a massive supermarket. My job was in the butcher department on the graveyard shift. I started, all was normal. I was trimming, slicing, and packaging pork chops. Fairly simple and straightforward. After I had spent basically 8 hours doing this, I had 3 large garbage bins full of fat. The other guys dragged the bins to the corners of the room and proceeded to have a fat fight, just chucking the fat at each other and laughing their heads off. Then, for cleanup, they just swept up what they could see and did nothing else. Not only did I not go back for a second shift, but I've never bought meat of any of those supermarkets again. Answer 14. It was an assistant for an ophthalmologist office. After a couple of unpaid training sessions, first red flag, where they told me multiple times that it was a part-time job with guaranteed hours. On my first day, they then told me it was per diem, and they'd call me in only when they needed me. Red flag number 2, which made me pretty mad as I was a broke college student who needed dependable income. Then, as I was leaving and grabbed my coat, the doctor said, "Oh no, let me put that on for you." Grabbed my coat and put it on for me, which was very touchy and weird for someone who I just met and was more than twice my age. Told them I'm not coming back and to not contact me. Answer 15. I was hired at a traffic control company, setting up cones, flagging, etc. The first week was classroom instruction to be certified by the state DOT. About 11 of us show up on day 1 and sit there for about 45 minutes waiting for the instructor to show up when another random employee came in and said the person who was supposed to teach us about traffic safety couldn't make it for whatever reason, and they were struggling finding a replacement. They sent us all home and said they'd call when they could find a replacement teacher. I drove to the office, but most of the other people had gotten dropped off, so I had to take like 4 other strangers home. Luckily, one of the dudes had brought a blunt with him, so we ended up getting stoned on our impromptu carpool home. I don't think any of us ever bothered to go back after that. Answer 16. I was hired at a private DRS office as front desk/reception. There were 4 to 6 of us all as reception, basically all assistants. And there was 1 chair for everyone to use, 1 computer, and 1 phone. We would be penalized for taking bathroom breaks or taking our lunch breaks. I lasted 1 whole day. Didn't bother going back to that. I didn't want to be yelled at simply for needing to pee or because I was hungry. No thank you, LOL. Answer 17. When I started nursing school, our first semester was lab only. The second semester we started in-hospital clinicals. Our first day of our first clinical, I saw a fellow student in the parking lot, and so we walked in together to help each other. The doors of the elevator opened to the geriatric floor, and we got slammed in the face with stale urine and shit smell. It was bad. The girl turned to me, her face pale white, eyes wide, and said, "I don't think I can do this." She quit nursing school that day. Answer 18. It wasn't the first day, it was the second day. I was doing framing for condo construction right after being laid off from a previous job. It was low wages. All coworkers were young and unqualified, working outside in minus 30 degrees Celsius, from dark to dark. On the second day, I was talking to another guy about how much overtime we're getting doing these 11+ hour shifts, and he said they didn't get overtime. LOL, bye. Answer 19. Went for an interview at a finance firm for what I thought was a data analyst position. The interview happened in a classroom with about a dozen other people. A manager stood at the front and told us what the company did, which involved making it easier for people to get loans. The explanation went on for a literal hour before there was a 10-minute break. Nobody in the room had been interviewed yet. In fact, none of the candidates had even been asked a question. I talked to one of the other candidates in the break, and it turned out she hadn't even studied finance, but rather herbal medicine. She had been hoping to break into a new industry, but thought this was all dodgy as hell. I agreed, and we both left. Hey you, subscribe for more histories. Answer 20. Never done it myself, but my wife's done it twice. First time she turned in the morning and no one was there. Someone arrived an hour later. They'd no desk, chair, or laptop for her. The boss who'd hired her hadn't told anyone else she was starting. She never went back. Second time she turned up, and as there was no room for a desk in the office, her boss put a desk out in the corridor. So she didn't feel self-conscious about being out in the corridor. They put a big screen around her desk. They then left her to introduce herself to everyone else in the company whilst they went off for lunch without her. Answer 21. It was to be my secondary job, so I didn't have the highest expectations anyway. Here are my complaints. I worked at a casino for one shift, and that was enough for me. Lots of little gripes that, when on their own, don't seem that bad, but combined was not worth it. First, it took about a month to get hired because their HR and all the regulations make the process tedious and slow. Lots of signing things and background checks, which I understand, but if it takes a month to get hired, I wouldn't be surprised if someone gets another job before they hear back from that casino. I have little experience with casinos, but they didn't tell me where I needed to go, so I had to call and ask. When I got there, they didn't know I was coming. HR hadn't given me a uniform, so they had to find one for me. I found out I needed to park in a specific place, otherwise I would get a ticket. I did not know this, and was only told 20 minutes into my shift. So I did that after a nicer person helped guide me through the employee-only parts of the building, to the locker rooms and such. We walked fast because they were still in the clock, not their fault. But I still got lost again later. Tried to swipe my card to clock in 10 times. It never worked. Did get paid though. Got a locker, moved my car, then finally got to start working. I was a poker room attendant, which is a simple entry-level job where you check people into the poker room and put in reservations and answer phones to put them on the list. Easy, simple, immediately tedious. My shift was from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. The nice person left about an hour into the shift and was replaced with who was going to train me. It was their third day working there. While they understood some things, even for a simple job, it's not fair to them or me to be trained by someone who only has a little training themselves. I've read a lack of any training is a problem nowadays. Another thing, the poker tables were numbered 1 to 12 and only 5 were open that day. It was slow, but the outline on the computers didn't correspond to the room, so like 3 on the computer was somewhere else on the floor, made it difficult to guide people where they had signed up for. Overall, the biggest thing that made me quit after I had done my entire shift was the schedule. I had said I could work Friday evenings, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, on the next Friday, this all was on a Saturday. They had me working from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next day. The problem with that is the job I currently have. I wake up at 5 a.m. and work till about 5 p.m., meaning that if I was to work that Friday shift, I would have had more than 24 hours without sleep, which I cannot do, especially long term. Maybe it's just me, but I will never sacrifice sleep for a full day for minimum wage. Answer 22. Not technically on my first day, but my second. Got a part-time job at a pizza place on campus, just to earn a bit more money since my husband and I planned on moving away soon. First day was training. They went over the menu, how to make all the items, and side work. Cool, everything was going well. Next day I show up and there's only one other person there, a shift lead. She lets me know it will just be me and her all day and warns me this is the busiest day of the week, so we may have to skip breaks. Tells me I'll be working the register, which no one had trained me on or set up login access for me yet. Nope. I told her I'm very sorry to leave her hanging, but if this is how the business is run, then I am not a good fit for it. I called the GM and let him know so that he could figure his shit out and get someone in to help her because it was not going to be me. He ended up coming in and giving me a talking to that I honestly just tuned out. When he was done, I let him know I didn't think he put the shift lead or myself in a position to succeed, and I was giving my notice effective immediately. Answer 23. Pest control company cold calling. All-women team except one guy who got me the job. One of the women introduced herself to me, then turned to the other women and started talking about her vaginal discharge. She specifically used the word discharge. It wasn't even a medical conversation. She said she can't wear tight shorts to the club because her discharge would show through. Between this and being screamed at on the phone for 6 hours, I never went back. But it gave me insight into the people who excel at cold calling. They really give absolutely zero fucks about anything, including what others think. I told myself I'd never try phone work ever again. But now I'm a phone sex operator, so life works in mysterious ways. Answer 25. I got a job at McDonald's when I was 16. A few hours into my first shift, my trainer asked me to grab something from the walk-in freezer. And when I went inside, they locked me in. I couldn't get out and started panicking and banging on the door, and they didn't let me out for a solid 10 minutes. I was sobbing and freezing cold at that point, and the whole crew was laughing at me. My trainer told me that was my initiation, and I just grabbed my bag and called my mom from the payphone and sat outside crying, waiting for her. She went back in the next day, and I'm not sure what came of that, but I'm sure she tore somebody a new asshole. Luckily, this was back when you could just walk into a business and get a job that day. So I was working at a grocery store a few days later, and did not have to endure any more walk-in freezer panic attack initiations. Answer 26. I was selling cars for a bit and started a new place that was under construction. Cool, I can deal with that. First day shadowing someone. That's fairly normal to get the feel of how they want things done. At about 6 p.m., we close at 7. I asked, hey, what do we need to do before closing? Normally, it check cars to make sure they are locked up, make sure no customer info is out on desk. Fairly common things. Manager said no. So at 7, I go in and say, hey, thanks, I'm gonna head home. Manager looks stunned and asks if I have done closing duties. I'm pissed, but whatever. I go do my shit. The next morning, I come in and they are doing a sales meeting. Fine, but it's this very specific word track I need to say to all the customers. This is not my thing. I sold cars and was good at it. After the meeting, I get a lead. Where is my desk, computer, phone? We don't have those. Use your personal for now. Nope, I'm out. Grabbed my keys and left.
That was enough for today, Cosmonaut. I'll wait for you in the next travel.